My girlfriend insisted I meet her parents over dinner. She trashed me in Spanish to them all night, thinking I wouldn't understand. She laughed. He's too stupid to even know. At the end of the dinner, I thanked her parents for their hospitality in perfect fluent Spanish, and then exposed every lie she'd ever told me. My girlfriend of 2 years, Sophia, has been on a mission for the last 6 months. The mission was simple. Get me to meet her parents. I was hesitant, not because I was afraid of commitment, but because of how she described them. They sounded intense, traditional, and deeply intertwined in her life. Sophia, however, was relentless. She insisted it was the most important next step in our relationship. Finally, I agreed. The big dinner was scheduled for last night. I had no idea. I wasn't walking into a dinner. I was walking into an ambush. Before I continue, I need to explain something about myself that is crucial to this story. My last name is Peterson. I look for all intents and purposes like a typical American guy. But my mother, who passed away from cancer when I was 16, was from Seville, Spain. She moved to the United States in her 20s. For my entire childhood, Spanish was the language of our home. It was the language she used to sing me lullabies, to tell me stories, to say, I love you. After she died, speaking Spanish became painful. It was a private language filled with memories of her. I packed it away in a quiet corner of my heart and rarely used it. Sophia knew my mother had passed away, but she never dug any deeper. She's not one for details unless they directly concern her. She just knew my dad was American and assumed my mum was too. In 2 years, she never once asked about my mother's heritage. The fact that I was fluent in perfect Castilian Spanish was a secret. I never intentionally kept, but one she was never curious enough to discover. We arrived at her parents' house last night. They were exactly as she had described, warm on the surface, but with intense, scrutinizing eyes. Her father, Mr. Rodriguez, gave me a firm handshake. Her mother, Mrs. Rodriguez, offered a polite but cool smile. We sat down in their formal dining room, and the performance began. Sophia immediately started speaking rapid-fire Spanish with her parents. She turned to me with a brilliant smile. "We're just so excited to see each other," she said. "We'll switch to English in a minute, I promise." The switch never came. For the next 2 hours, I sat at that dinner table and listened to the woman I loved systematically assassinate my character in a language she thought was a secret code. I smiled politely. I nodded when they looked at me. I passed the salt, and I understood. It started with my career. I'm an architect at a successful firm. She told them in Spanish, he's fine, but he's not very ambitious. He's happy in his little cubicle. I'm the one with the real drive. I have to pay for most of our nice vacations and dinners out. This was a lie, a staggering one. I make more than double her salary and have paid for every vacation we have ever taken. Then she moved on to my personality and culture. He's a nice guy, I suppose, she said with a sigh, but he has no interest in our culture. He won't even try to learn a few words of Spanish. He's just a typical boring American who only knows about football and hamburgers. It's exhausting sometimes. I had literally just finished reading a biography of the Spanish architect Santiago Calatrava in its original Spanish text the week before. The final dagger was about our future. Her mother asked if we were serious, if marriage was on the table. Sophia laughed, a light tinkling sound that sounded like breaking glass to my ears. "Oh, I want to get married," she said, "but he's the one who is dragging his feet. I think he's terrified of commitment. I have to practically beg him to even talk about the future." In my jacket pocket, in a small, secure pouch, was the custom design file for the engagement ring I was having made. I was planning to propose to her on a surprise trip to Italy. I had booked for her birthday next month. The conversation continued like this all night. They dissected my character, my finances, my family, and my future. All while I sat there, a smiling guest at my own public execution. The worst part was her casual cruelty, the way she would look at me with a soft, loving expression, while simultaneously telling her parents that I was a simple-minded financial burden. As dessert was being served, she delivered the final fatal blow. Her father asked her, "Are you sure about him?" "Maker, he seems simple." Sophia laughed. and reached across the table to pat my hand affectionately. She looked me right in the eye, her expression full of fake love, and said to her parents in Spanish, "It's fine. He's too stupid to even know we're talking about him. Look at him, just smiling like an idiot." That was it. The grief, the rage, the betrayal. It all coalesced into a single point of cold, hard resolve. I was not going to cause a scene. I was not going to yell. I was going to wait for the perfect moment, and I was going to burn her entire world to the ground with nothing but the truth. The moment came as we were getting ready to leave. Her father, clearly feeling a little guilty, turned to me and patted my shoulder. He spoke in slow, deliberate English, as if to a child. "It was very nice to meet you, Alex," he said. I smiled warmly. I turned to him, making full eye contact, and the language of my mother, the language Sophia had used as a weapon, came pouring out of me, as natural as breathing. "I, Rodriguez," I said in perfect, unaccented Castilian Spanish. "The pleasure was all mine, Mr. Rodriguez." I then turned to his wife, Rodriguez. "And you, Mrs. Rodriguez, are an incredible cook. The dinner was delicious. Thank you so much for your wonderful hospitality." The effect was instantaneous. The Duck Rodriguez's fork clattered onto her plate. Mr. Rodriguez's jaw went slack, his eyes wide with shock. And Sophia? Sophia turned a color I have never seen a human being turn before. It was a pale, ghostly white. She looked like she was going to be sick. I wasn't finished. I kept my warm, polite smile fixed on my face and turned back to her parents, still speaking in fluent Spanish. I said, "And Sophia, I just want to thank you as well. This evening has been incredibly clarifying. There are just a few small things I'd like to clear up while we're all here together." Update 1. The silence in the Rodriguez dining room was absolute. It was a heavy, suffocating silence, broken only by the sound of Mrs. Rodriguez's unsteady breathing. Sophia was frozen in her chair, her face and mask of pure, unadulterated horror. She looked like a chess player who had just realized her opponent was not a pigeon, but a grandmaster who had been letting her win for sport. I kept my demeanor calm and pleasant, as if I were just making polite end-of-evening conversation. I addressed her parents directly, still speaking in the clear, formal Spanish my mother had taught me. First I began. Sophia expressed some concern about my career and financial situation. I want to put your minds at ease. She must have been confused. I was actually made a junior partner at my architectural firm last month. It came with a significant raise. I am, in fact, doing very well. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and brought up the confirmation email for the trip to Italy. I had booked for her birthday. I placed the phone on the table so they could see the details. As for her paying for our nice things, this is the itinerary for the surprise trip I was taking her on next month. First-class tickets, a suite at the Hotel Decci in Rome. I believe she mentioned she was paying for our vacations. Another simple confusion, I'm sure. I looked at Sophia. A single tear was tracing a path down her cheek, leaving a clean track through her makeup. She didn't move. Second, I continued turning my attention back to her stunned parents. She mentioned my supposed lack of interest in her culture. This one wounded me deeply. My mother Maria was from Seville. She raised me speaking her language. It was the language of my home, of my heart. After she passed away, it became a private, painful memory. I didn't share it with Sophia because it was sacred to me. Her assumption that my silence was due to ignorance and disrespect is unfortunate. Mrs. Rodriguez put a hand to her chest, her expression softening with sympathy. Mr. Rodriguez just stared at his daughter with a look of dawning disappointment. And finally, I said, delivering the killing blow, the matter of commitment. I looked directly at Sophia now, my voice losing its pleasant tone, it taking on a hard, icy edge. You told your parents that I was afraid to get married, that I was the one putting it off. You told them this, knowing that I have spent the last month working with a jeweler to design a custom engagement ring for you, knowing that I was planning to ask you to be my wife under the stars in Rome. I let that statement hang in the air for a long moment. But I see now that a man cannot and should not propose to a woman who believes he's a stupid, clueless idiot. A man cannot build a future with a woman who uses the sacred language of his late mother as a tool to mock him, to belittle him to her family. I stood up from the table. I turned to her parents one last time. Devo gracia por todo. I said again, thank you for everything. You have a lovely home. Then I walked out of the house, got in my car, and drove away, leaving Sophia there to sit in the ruins of the world she had created. The car ride back to our apartment was the longest 30 minutes of my life. She eventually came out of the house and got in, but we didn't speak. The silence was louder than any argument. When we got inside our apartment, the dam finally broke. She exploded. She accused me of deceiving her, of tricking her, of setting her up. You knew the whole time, she screamed, her voice hoarse. You sat there and let me talk. You did this to humiliate me. No, Sophia, I said, my voice weary. I didn't do anything. I just sat at a table and existed. You did the rest. You humiliated yourself with your own words, with your own lies. The only thing I did was understand them. She started crying, then begging me to forgive her, saying she didn't mean it, that she was just trying to make her parents like me by making herself look better. The excuses were as pathetic as they were transparent. There is no coming back from this. I said, you didn't just lie to your parents. You lied about every aspect of our life together. And you used my mother's memory as the backdrop for your little theatre. That is unforgivable. I walked into our bedroom and started pulling a suitcase out of a closet. This is my apartment, Sophia. The lease is in my name. I want you to pack your things. I want you to be out of here by the end of the week. She stared at me, her face crumbling as the finality of my words sank in. She hadn't just lost an argument. She had lost everything. Update 2. The week that followed the disastrous dinner was a grim logistical affair. Sophia moved through the apartment like a ghost, packing her life into cardboard boxes. The atmosphere was thick with a mixture of her silent, resentful sorrow and my own cold, quiet resolve. There were a few more pathetic attempts at tearful apologies, but they were half-hearted. She knew she had crossed a line from which there was no return. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry. She got caught. True to my word. She was gone by Friday. I helped her move the last box into her car. We didn't say goodbye. I just closed the door, went back inside my apartment, and felt the profound sense of peace that comes with the removal of a toxic presence. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The real fallout was just beginning. A few days after she left, I got a phone call from an unknown number. I answered cautiously. It was Mr. Rodriguez, Sophia's father. His voice was heavy. Alex, he said, it's Hector Rodriguez. I am calling to apologize. I was taken aback. You have nothing to apologize for, sir, I replied. No, he insisted. I do. I apologize for my daughter's behavior in my home. I apologize for the things she said and for the fact that we, her parents, just sat there and allowed it to happen. There is no excuse. We have raised our daughter to be better than that. And that night we saw that we have failed in some way. What she did to you and to the memory of your mother was shameful. He told me they had had a long, difficult conversation with Sophia after I left. He said that when confronted with the truth, she had completely broken down and admitted to everything. He told me that they were deeply disappointed and ashamed. I just want you to know, he concluded that we do not condone her actions. You are a good man, a man of character, and I am sorry that my family caused you such pain. I was genuinely moved. Thank you, Hector, I said. That means more to me than you know. This phone call was the first sign that Sophia's support system was not as solid as she believed. She had always counted on her parents to be in her corner no matter what, but her lies had been so blatant, her disrespect so profound, that she had managed to alienate her own biggest allies. Sophia, meanwhile, was attempting to spin the narrative with our mutual friends. She told them a wild, convoluted story about how I had a secret life, that I had been hiding my true self from her for years, and that her breakup was because I was a manipulative and deceptive person. It didn't work. The story of what had happened at the dinner was just too specific, too dramatic, and too damning. I only had to tell the true version to 1 or 2 close friends. From there, it spread like wildfire. The image of me sitting silently at a dinner table while my fiancé unknowingly insulted me in a language I secretly understood was a far more compelling and believable story than her vague accusations. Her attempt to paint me as the villain just made her look desperate and unhinged. The final pathetic act was a text message I received from her last week. It said, "I know you cancelled the trip to Italy. I think you owe me half the money for the tickets since you broke up with me and it was supposed to be my birthday gift." I stared at the message, a slow, sad smile spreading across my face. Even now, after all the lies and humiliation, her first thought was about the money, about what she felt she was owed. I didn't reply. I just deleted the message and blocked her number for the last time. Final update. It has been 6 months since my life took a sharp, unexpected, and ultimately positive turn. The drama with Sophia has faded into the background, replaced by a quiet and steady sense of peace. The final pieces of her story have filtered back to me, and they paint a picture of a life defined by the consequences of a single disastrous evening. Sophia's relationship with her parents is by all accounts incredibly strained. According to the friend who keeps me loosely informed, they're no longer enabling her. Her father, a man of principle, was so disgusted by her deception that he has put her on a strict life probation. They're making her go to therapy. They're making her pay for her own expenses. They're forcing her, for the first time in her life, to be a responsible adult. The unconditional adoration and support she had always taken for granted is gone, replaced by a guarded disappointment. She lost her fiancé, and in the process, she lost the pedestal. Her parents had always kept her on. She's still living in a small apartment, working her old job, and is reportedly miserable. Her attempts to date again have been unsuccessful. The story of the dinner party has become something of a cautionary tale in our social circle, and her reputation as a deceptive and materialistic person precedes her. As for me, I have been rebuilding. The first thing I did after she left was sell the engagement ring I had designed. I took the money and booked myself a different kind of trip. I didn't go to Italy, I went to Seville, the city where my mother was born. I spent 2 weeks there alone. I walked the streets, she walked. I ate the food she loved, and I spoke her language. Not as a secret, but as a celebration. I visited the old neighborhood where she grew up, and I sat in the pews of the church where she was baptized. It was a pilgrimage. It was a way of taking back the part of my identity that Sophia had tried to tarnish, and making it my own again. The experience was transformative. I reconnected not just with my mother's memory, but with a part of myself I had kept locked away for too long. I came back feeling whole, feeling centered, feeling free. I don't know what the future holds for me. I'm not dating anyone. I'm just enjoying the quiet, steady rhythm of my own life. I'm focusing on my work at the firm, spending time with friends who are genuine, and planning another trip, maybe to Argentina next time. Sophia's greatest act of disrespect was using the language of my heart as a weapon of contempt. She thought it was her secret code, her private joke, but she was wrong. It was my history, my heritage, my mother's love, and in the end, it was the truth that set me free. She tried to define me as a stupid, clueless man. Instead, she revealed herself to be a woman who couldn't see the value of what was right in front of her. And that is a loss far greater than any I could have ever inflicted on her.